Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Matters of Faith, the radio show. Matters of Faith is a show designed to bring issues of interest to you, the listening and viewing audience, that will put a biblical perspective on everyday issues. I am your host, the Reverend Dr. J. Lauren Russell, and it is my job to engage you in stimulating dialogue that's inspiring, encouraging, and motivating, dialogue and conversations that will help you build your determination, your commitment, and your character, conversations that will help you keep the faith. Everyone born of God overcomes the world. This is the victory that has overcome the world, even our faith. 1 John chapter 5, verse 4. And now, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, without further ado, it is time for Matters of Faith, the radio show. Good evening. It's Monday, June 24th. It's 8 o'clock, and it's time for Matters of Faith, the radio show. Tonight we're talking about the article and the topic, the foolish things. The foolish things. And my very special guest, Dr. Sophia McIntyre, medical doctor. We are broadcasting live on Matters of Faith, the YouTube channel, so tell a phone and tell a friend. We're also on the J. Lauren Russell and the Matters of Faith Facebook groups. Make sure you telephone and tell a friend. We're talking about the foolish things with Dr. Sophia McIntyre. Please don't forget our sponsors and advertisers, the JLR Company and J. Lauren Russell Consulting, LLC. For all of your church financial consulting needs, we have a website, www.jlaurenrussellconsulting.com. That's jlaurenrussellconsulting.com. Or telephone us at 718-328-8096, 718-328-8096. If you need a church loan, if you need to develop your property, if you want to know how to maintain your church property, if you need to train your trustees, if you need evangelism training, give us a call. We'll help. It's not about the castle. It's about the kingdom. Matters of Faith, the book. Through our Cash App, $ Matters of Faith, the book is $23.92. You can send your check or money order to the Post Office Box 301, New York, New York 10035. That's Post Office Box 301, New York, New York 10035, and address it to the JLR Company. You can also get it as an ebook. Just go to www.smashwords.com/books/view/993177. Once again, www.smashwords.com/books/view/993177. Check out the Eat Okra app for all black-owned restaurants all over the nation. Yes, that's right, Eat Okra. And then subscribe, like, and share our Matters of Faith YouTube channel. We are now broadcasting Matters of Faith on our Matters of Faith YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, and share it with a friend. And also, get your subscription to Better Mag magazine today. A 2-year subscription is only $27.50. Go to www.abettermag.com. That's www.abettermag.com. This is your absolute last chance to register and attend Rotary District 7230's annual conference, which will be held on Saturday, June 29th from 10 to 5 p.m. at the historic Yankee Stadium for an historic occasion. We will be celebrating the year gone by, the year that I served as district governor, as the first African-American district governor in over 100 years. Please, ma'am, please, sir, if you considered it, now is your time. Register today and join us on Saturday, June 29th at Yankee Stadium for District 7230 of Rotary International's annual conference. We'll see you on Saturday. To all of our men and young men, Citywide Clergy Collective and the New York State Chaplain Workers Task Force cordially invites you to a men's movie night tomorrow, June 25th at 5 p.m. The movie night will be held at the Greater Holy Tabernacle Church, 3780 3rd Avenue in the Bronx, New York. The admission is free. We're going to watch a movie called Courageous. Please, ma'am, please tell your men, tell your young men to join us tomorrow evening, June 25th at 5 p.m. We're going to have food and beverages, and the movie night is free. We're watching the movie Courageous. When a tragedy strikes close to home, 4 police officers struggle with their faith and their role as husbands and fathers. Together they make a decision that will change all of their lives. Yours too if you're there. We look to see you tomorrow evening, June 25th at 5 o'clock at the Greater Holy Tabernacle Church, 3780 3rd Avenue, Bronx, New York. Admission is free. And now the article, Foolish Things. That article can be found in my column, Matters of Faith, at the Bronx Chronicle, www.thebronxchronicle.com. It can be found in the Yonkers Insider, www.yonkersinsider.blogspot.com. The column is also carried in Better Mag magazine and Pamela's Big Heart newsletter. Better Mag magazine is www.abettermag.com, www.abettermag.com. Pamela's Big Heart newsletter, just look up Pamela's Big Heart and you'll find it there. The Foolish Things. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 26 through 31, New King James Version. For you see your calling, brethren, that not many wise according to the flesh, not many mighty, not many noble are called. But God has chosen the foolish things of the world to put to shame the wise. And God has chosen the weak things of the world to put to shame the things which are mighty. And the base things of the world, and the things which are despised, God has chosen. And the things which are not, to bring to nothing the things that are, that no flesh should glory in his presence. But of him you are in Christ Jesus, who became for us wisdom from God, and righteousness, and sanctification, and redemption, that, as it is written, he who glories, let him glory in the Lord. The foolish things. In the reading from Our Daily Bread this past Friday, the author said about these verses in Paul's letter to the Corinthian church, quote, he wrote to a troubled church, characterized by congregational conflicts, abuse of liberty, lack of humility, immorality, and disunity, unquote. So that no one misunderstands the point. It was not the people in the world Paul was talking about. He was talking about the people who made up the church. The text addresses those who had been placed in leadership. He tells them that it was not because of their intelligence, their status, their influence, their authority, or anything that would make them think they were superior to others. Paul says that God chose the foolish things of the world to confound the wise and the mighty. He reminds the leaders as well as the wayward church that God does not often choose the affluent, the mighty, the strong, or the intellectually gifted to lead his church. They themselves were examples of the foolish, the weak, the base, the despised, the things that are not, that they were the ones chosen by God to be leaders of this wayward church. They were specifically chosen so everyone would see that there was nothing to brag or boast about, and God would get the glory. This reminds me of Moses telling the children of Israel as they were about to enter the promised land, quote, then you say in your heart, my power and the might of my hand have gained me this wealth, and you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant, which he swore to your fathers, as it is this day. Deuteronomy chapter 8, verses 17 and 18. Everything they may have thought was the reason for their wealth or their status, anything they thought qualified them to lead God's people, was the exact thing that eliminated them from consideration. It is just as true today as it was in the days of Moses and the days of the early church. God does not send the qualified. He qualifies the sent. While it may be true in the secular world that those who are the most qualified based on their education, experience, or connections are the ones who are most likely given the reins of leadership, it is not so in God's kingdom. God uses the foolish things to bring glory to himself. He uses those with the availability, not just those who have the ability. He chooses those with the least and gets the most. The foolish things to confound the wise. He chooses ordinary people to do extraordinary things. Are you, with your foolish self, ready, willing, and available to be used by God to confound the wise? Be blessed. Now here's my question tonight. Are you, with your foolish self, ready, willing, and available to be used by God to confound the wise? You heard that before, haven't you? Are you, with your foolish self, ready, willing, and available to be used by God to confound the wise? And now, Matters of Faith family, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce my very special guest this evening, Dr. Sophia McIntyre. Dr. Sophia McIntyre's healthcare executive leadership spans nearly 2 decades and has been undergirded by her sincere desire to serve, lead, and educate and empower others, pursue excellence, and the courage to experiment and reimage healthcare delivery and design. Dr. McIntyre's reimaged healthcare is one that is curated to the unique needs of patients, delivered with respect and dignity, the highest quality, most efficient, and technology is leveraged to make care better and simpler. Her expertise includes strategic and clinical operations in large, complex, clinically integrated health systems, value-based reimbursement models, physician compensation models, physician well-being programs, qualified and performance outcomes, clinical research in hypertension and breastfeeding, people development, change management, and executive coaching. Her commitment to excellence is demonstrated by her academic and professional expertise and her experience. She earned 2 master's degrees, a master's in business administration from the University of Massachusetts Amherst and a master's in public health with a concentration in maternal and child health from New York Medical College. She completed her undergraduate bachelor's degree in biology from the renowned historically black college, Spelman, in Atlanta, Georgia. She attended Drexel University School of Medicine in Philadelphia and completed her family medicine residency at Medical College of Georgia. And she is a board certified family physician, a certified physician executive, fellow of the American Association of Physician Leadership, and fellow of the American Association of Family Physicians. She's also a Baldrige Executive Fellow and currently serves as judge for the U.S. Department of Commerce, a National Institute of Standards and Technology of the Baldrige Performance Program. Because she has an insatiable desire to continue to advance her skills and learning, she recently completed a certificate course at Wharton School of Business entitled AI for Decision Making, Business Strategies and Applications, and is currently pursuing a coaching certification through the College of Executive Coaching, an International Coaching Federation accredited program. Dr. McIntyre leverages her curiosity, consistency, and courageous mindset with her lived experience, professional expertise, and network to make a meaningful and positive impact in her personal, professional, and social environment. She ascribes to the quote, "Success is the sum of small efforts, repeated day in and day out. Success is neither magical or mysterious. Success is the natural consequence of consistently applying basic fundamentals." Robert Collier. Dr. McIntyre is married, and they have 2 wonderful children. So, Matters of Faith family, after having said all of that, would you please welcome with me tonight, not her first time, she's going to be on several occasions, but I'm so glad to have her back, Dr. Sophia McIntyre, to the Matters of Faith family. Okay, I think I got it all in there. God bless you. How are you?
I am well. I am well. And it's a pleasure to be with you tonight.
Well, it's a pleasure having you tonight with me. I'm so glad that you accepted my invitation to come. You are absolutely one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. So I'm really glad to see you. I don't see you nearly as much as I'd like to. So thank you so much for coming. Now I got to ask you a question. I read the bio, some of it anyway. I didn't talk about your family. I just talked about you and what you did professionally. But tell us something about you that we don't know and we really should know.
Well, I would say something that's important to share is that I'm a Christian. And I walk through this life thinking about how my actions, both in public and private, align to my Christian values.
All right. I like that. Now I knew that, but I'm glad you tell everybody else. Now they know that. That's
Yes.
good. That's good. And I like talking about alignment because I like to say when your theology and your physical work together in unison, you can accomplish anything because now it's all about him and not about you. And he uses ordinary people to do extraordinary things. I like when you use the word alignment. So yeah, yeah. Talk about that for a moment because I talked a lot about in your bio your accomplishments and the way in which the Lord uses you, how He has blessed you. He has taken you to places that some of us just imagine. We don't even know it really exists. We just think it does. But you've been there. I mean, you've been educated. You went to, one of the premier institutions in America at Spelman. You went to Drexel. You got your doctorate. You are a medical doctor. You do family practice. And we just touched on all of those things, but you're still going to school and you're still learning and you're still acquiring and you're still building on this foundation. So talk about that if you don't mind.
Sure, I'm happy to. So I, have always believed that God has provided me these opportunities so that I may share that with others. And I'm going to use the quote from Don Staley because, as you know, I played basketball in high school and in college. And one thing that Dawn Staley said at the end of her success, she said, uncommon favor.
Mm,
And as a demonstration of how she achieved so much. And so I often say that I believe I am one of God's chosen ones, and not as a matter of boasting, but as a matter of calling, that I have a calling on my life to do and to share what he has blessed me with others. And that manifests itself in so many ways. And that's in, sharing information, making sure that I continue to learn and to share my knowledge with others, and to also be a vessel for
mm,
God. And
mm,
so, at the top of the program, you asked, so tell me something that they don't know. And it's really about the walk and making sure and striving, because, let's be clear, I am certainly not perfect.
mm.
And, the desire is that my actions, both in public and private, and my words really manifest what God has for me. And that's not easy with this
Mm,
world, for sure. And when I hear what you shared in terms of these accomplishments, it's really about the fundamentals, I would say, of what my mother has instilled in me. And then the support of my husband and my children that have enabled me to be able to accomplish that. Because we're not on an island by ourselves, right? All that we accomplish is a manifestation of many, and so what you see on that paper is a really manifestation of the love and the support of family, friends, and prayer warriors that have poured into me.
And it's interesting because I know a little bit about you. I know a little bit about you. I know where you come from. I know you
Yes.
grew up at. I know
Yeah.
all those little things that a lot of people don't know. But um I want you on tomorrow. Tomorrow, you heard me say this. Tomorrow we're having a movie night. And the
Mhm,
movie is designed, the night itself is designed to address the violence that's taking place in our community,
mhm,
to try to minimize that and put a clergy presence in the community so that we take the faith out of the building and put it into the world.
mhm,
It's on Third Avenue, right off of St. Paul's Place
mhm,
at the Holy Tabernacle Church. That's where we're going to do it. And we're doing it because of what's going on in our community. And it's not just our community, it's happening all over America. Matter of fact, it's happening all over the world. Uh,
mhm.
Woke up this morning to what, 9 people being shot and killed in Russia. It's not new to us, right? This is the way it is. This is when you're battling spiritual wickedness in high places. But I say that because I know that you came and you grew up in the South Bronx, where I grew up, where I still live, and where I still try to make a difference. And so and you said, I'm not an exception. I'm more a chosen. I've gotten favor from God. Talk about that for a moment, because I think there might be somebody listening who thinks that, well, I can't do it because where I come from. I can't do it because of my background. I can't do it because, and then they'll come up with all of these becauses, but they'll forget about the choices. The God chooses whom he likes, and he can choose the foolish to confound the wise. So would you?
Yeah, so I think about the very beginning, as I mentioned earlier. So my mom was a single parent of two children, had my sister at 17, at me at 19. We grew up in public housing. And, many statistics will say, oh, there's no way that you or that family would achieve much. And, my mom had the fortitude to really keep us focused. And I think I shared this on a program earlier 3 years ago when I was on
Yes,
your
yes.
show. And, it wasn't until I went to Spelman I realized that from a financial perspective, we were considered poor. And largely because I had everything that I needed
Mm,
and some. And so what my mom had instilled in us was, your current circumstance does not, dictate your future. And that is so key and important to not get captured into where you are currently, but really have a belief in that God has better for you. And, honestly, if you sort of calculate it all, you can't really, at least for me, assert anything other than God choosing us for this purpose.
hmm
And the chosen, I believe, have a duty to, again, to use the talents to share with others, because otherwise, why has God blessed you in the way that he has, right? And so I have firmly believed that. So throughout my upbringing, I have been the product of so many who poured on into me. So you, as my Sunday school teacher, so we can share with the group that you was my Sunday school teacher at Goodwill Baptist Church.
hmm
That was a church my grandfather was a member. And then when I came back to the Bronx, where I was a member, and really it was during that time where I began to better understand the Bible and better understand the calling that I had on my life. And you were a big part of that. And then, certainly as I reflect at Spelman, when you go away from home, and for me, I was the youngest of two, and I was certainly a mama's baby, and getting outside of, my environment, and then growing up. Part of that growing up is defining who you are as a person. And it really was while I was at Spelman that I joined Antioch Baptist Church, and I got baptized and really had a stronger faith and declared that, I wanted to be a follower of Jesus and I wanted my life to be a reflection of that. And recognizing, at that time, of course, I didn't have the terminology of uncommon favor that Dallin Staley nicely said, but I knew that something was different. And so it's just recognizing the importance of where you are and how you can help to make things better. And then my last point, because I'm a bit, talkative, but we have a few hours, so we
hmm
have plenty of time. As I began to learn about amazing leaders, during the civil rights movement, and thought about how they sacrificed so much for the good of others,
hmm
it also was an affirming, you know, aspect of, my understanding of what my calling was. And so I'll say this. I remember learning that Martin Luther King was in his early 30s,
Mm,
thinking, oh my goodness, what an amazing impact this young man had, the influence. And we know it wasn't just him, right? There were many, many, many others,
mhm,
right? But when you think about and reflect on that, at least for me, I was like, I got work to do. And so I have always wanted to leave this place better, and
Mm.
thinking about how our ancestors were so much about leaving the place better because there was so much. And the irony is, it feels like we're very much where we were back then.
Yeah. That's a very true statement, all of it, especially the one about um feeling like we were right back where we were before, repeating. And of course, if you don't know your history, someone once said you're destined to repeat it. And when it's a negative history, it tends to jump up and bite you on a regular basis if you're not aware of it. The other day, we had let me just say this too before, because you really touched the nerve when you talked about Dr. King and others who applied and gave their lives and was willing to do that. And he did it at a very, very young age. In retrospect, I see that now. He was a child. He was really a child at 39 years old. Um, 32, 33, 34. He was a young man doing incredible things. And it scared me when I started studying about Dr. King, because I was of course born. I was a child at the time when he got killed. He was around my mom's age. And I remember her crying so hard when it was announced that he was killed. And I remember starting to study him, study some of the books that were written about him, and feeling something inside of me saying that there's a calling in you. I'm calling you. And as a child, I was saying, I don't want to go, because I'll be like Dr. King. I'll probably get killed. Because even as a child, I knew that whatever I set my mind to, I give it my all. And when you tend to do that, you can put yourself in harm's way on a regular basis.
Mhm.
So I kind of fought it until I could fight no longer. Today, I'm at a place in my life where Simon de Beauvoir said this very nicely. He says, that's what I consider true generosity. You give your all, and yet you always feel as if it costs you nothing. And that's where I've evolved to. And so I'm doing more now at my age, virtually, than I've ever done in my life. And, I don't feel, as we sing in the church, no ways tired. I feel good because I know that the impact is going to have a lasting effect. And that's what excites me about, about being involved, not just sitting in the bleachers and watching the game being played, but getting on the court and making a difference in the game. You can't change the game if you're not in it. I know they talk a lot about being a six man, this, but you can't change that game if you're not on that court. You know what I mean? You can inspire people, you can get them motivated, but you can't sink a basket unless you're on the court. You can't stop you in basketball terminology, you can't stop a layup if you don't play defense. And if you're sitting on the bench, and especially if you're sitting on the stand, you can't do a thing to change the game. And
Yeah,
so,
and as we caught up yesterday in preparation for tonight, I was marveled by all that you're doing in the community, and it's amazing and so important for you and all of us, right, to contribute to making the place in which we live better in some
mhm,
way. And we all have a contribution, big or small, and to be able to think about how important it is for the collective, for
right.
us to think that. As I reflect on where we are as a community, I feel like there's some missed opportunities in the advancement of social media and all that's out there. I think it robs us of the opportunity to have better community and to
Mhm,
not be so self-centered in our belief, but to really think about the collective. And of course, it's a gross generalization. It doesn't mean for many, but I think there's an opportunity for us to think more about how we're serving others. My personal mission is to serve and lead, and you can't lead unless you're serving. And so, and there's so many ways to serve.
so many ways. No one can do everything, but everybody can do something. And if everyone would do something, everything will get done. I believe that with all my heart because, we did, when I was working for this organization, we did a national evangelical outreach. It was one of the most amazing things. And that was not my department, but they asked me to participate. And I was giddy because that's where my heart is, right? I can do other things, right? I was in the finance area. I was doing church lending and I was doing strategy coordinating. But my passion was in reaching people. And so when they asked me to contribute and to be a part of it, I was humbled. But what we did was looked at what do people do? So we equipped the entire nation, every church in our quote unquote denomination with Bibles, with plastic bags that they could put items in. We gave them the items, etc. And some people would stuff the bags. Some people would take those bags and put them on people's doors all over the nation. Some people would pray for those people who are out there putting them on their doors. Others would literally go and knock on the doors and talk to people, or go in the street and talk to people and minister to them and pray with them. But not everybody did the same thing. Mm-hmm. So everything got done, and it was done efficiently. It was done effectively because people weren't stepping on other people's toes trying to do what they could not do so that other people could do what they could do. And I was amazed at that. And so it really drove home the point that you don't have to do everything. Do what you're good at. Mm-hmm. Do what you've been blessed to do. If you've been gifted, such as yourself, to get, to become a physician, then be the best physician that you can be. Give. And don't just stop when the clinic closes or the hospital closes or the last patient leaves. There's other things that you can do to be able to provide knowledge, wisdom, and give understanding to people beyond the confines of your work environment, because that's what you've been gifted with. Use your gifts to make a difference in the lives of people. That's one of the things that I think when I met you, and when you told me when I met, I said, well, I think it was high school, but you're right. When I thought about it, I said, you got a better handle on it than I do, because I was in the church and you were coming in. And so it was in college. That was before you went to med school, right? And I remember that now. When you said it, it kind of flooded back. And I did go to the graduation. I was so delighted to be able to go to Philadelphia and see you get your doctorate in was it family practice? Was it?
Well, it was my medical degree. Yeah.
And I was just honored to be there. Your mom is, your mom and your sister. I love them. I love them to life. I won't love anybody to death. I just love them to life. And so it was just an amazing thing to see and to witness, and then to follow your career, to see how you've blossomed and wherever you were to do what it is that the Lord has equipped you to do, but not stopping on just the fact that, you've been blessed to be a physician, but then adding to that other things that will help you to continue to evolve and to develop others in areas beyond their physical well-being. That's, to me, that's amazing. I'm just totally delighted. I'm excited.
Yeah, when I think back at my career over the course of 20 years, I really feel like it's all been divinely ordered, because the impetus for me to become a physician was largely in part through my experience as a young child going to the doctor with my maternal grandmother and having physicians talk at us, not to us, more confusion than clarity. And, as I reflect on that, drive, it was really about having physicians that could care for folks that look like us with respect and dignity. And God saw it fit to create this desire and ability to be able to take it from the individual exam room to the boardroom, where I have influence on, thousands of patients so that the same principle of ensuring that care is delivered with respect and dignity could be orchestrated.
Mm.
So I marvel at the journey because medical school was hard for me. It was not an easy feat, and there were, times and moments of uncertainty
Mm.
along the path, and remaining steadfast and really uh, leaning on my faith to get me through those very difficult times. And, I just, if you told me while in medical school that I would go back to school, I'm like, you crazy. Because once I was completed my medical school, I was like, I am done forever. This was the hardest thing. And then it were, new experiences, exposure to, different thinking that opened, these other opportunities.
Mm.
And I'm grateful for those, opportunities and, for God to put that and plant that in my mind and create a path for that to occur.
That's it. I don't think I've ever heard you say that. I know I heard you say it was difficult, but not with the emphasis that you placed on it tonight. Um, Challenges that occurred when you were in medical school,
Mhm.
the real challenges, the difficulties of it, and that there have been times that you thought maybe maybe I made the wrong choice, right? This is really, really hard. And I think in my way of thinking, my dad used to say this all the time. He said, if it were easy, anybody could do it. That's why he gave it to you. And I mean, my dad died when I was 20 years old. So I
Mhm.
have these thoughts and these these wise sayings that he shared with me that are the things that continue to reflect in my mind. But
Mhm.
that was one that always stuck with me. If it were easy, anybody could do it. That's why he chose you.
Yeah, and that's why that quote at the end of my Bible, at the end of my bio,
Mm-hmm.
is a one that continues to remind me that it's the consistency, right? Because the ability to be successful in any career, it's the consistency of effort
Yeah.
and being clear about what the outcome is and staying steadfast in that. And it's not easy. I mean, there are so many things that many of us do. And it's easy to look at the output, but it's the days where they're long, where they're lonely, where the work is being done that requires a level of faith and understanding and a clarity about your calling. I think about, one of the books that I recommend to many of my leaders and that has served me well is The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People.
Mm-hmm.
And in that book, it talks about keeping the end in mind. And
Mm-hmm.
so, what has gotten me through each of the milestone is having a clarity about what the end result is. My mind, I'm a process driven. I'm very focused on the results. And so I knew that this is something that I wanted to accomplish and keeping that in mind in like I said, the long, lonely, and difficult times in the preparation to get to that point. And I think that's something that I'm sure many of us have figured out as a way to accomplish anything difficult.
It's interesting. I'm gonna read the quote from Robert Collier because I want them to know they may not have been here when I read it. But
Mhm.
success is the sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out. Success is neither magical or mysterious. Success is the natural consequence of consistently applying basic fundamentals. And that's the quote that Sophia was just talking about. And I agree with that because, in my life, I've learned a lot about consistency and persistency. And I know it's not the intellect. I know it's not the wisdom. None of those things can keep you from falling. Persistency will.
Mhm.
That's the ability to continue when you fall down. That's what gives you the ability to stand up when you feel like kneeling. That's the thing that lifts you up when somebody knocks you upside the head and you don't have any strength left. Persistency will keep you going. And
For
and
sure.
and I know that from my sales background that if you don't have goals before you, it's difficult to reach them because even if you get there, you want to know yet. So one thing I learned is that you can't manage the results. They're going to be what they are, but I can manage the activities.
Mhm.
And if I manage the activities, then if I don't reach the goal that I've set for myself, I'm better because of the efforts that I put in. I'm different. And because I'm different, I can always adjust the goal to suit the need. But if I didn't do the work, I would not be any different. I would be the same. And if
Mhm.
I'm the same, then there's been no change.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So now let's shift a little bit. We're gonna shift just a little bit. Um, the foolish things. Foolish things. And this is a good segue into it because sometimes persistence looks foolish because because it gets really, really hard and you get really, really lonely and you say, why am I doing this? I'd much rather go to a movie. I just, why am I doing this? I feel that regularly, regularly. But then when I think about the end result, what will happen because of it, it makes going through it much easier. And instead of going through a bed of thorns, I go down a sliding board, smooth sliding board, because the end result will be that I will be able to relax. I will be able to sort of woosah.
Mhm.
Right now, this has to get done. This must get done. So I get it. So let's talk about the foolish things. Some of those things that you have to go through in order to really sustain and stay the course.
Well, when you share the topic foolishness, I was like, oh Lord, you have been in my brain because there has been a lot of foolishness that exists both, in a professional environment and then definitely in society. And so, one thing I think about, because the text is really getting at, God choosing uh, foolish, um, perhaps folks who are not as skilled to create a message that he wants those to learn. That's how I've interpreted the scripture. And when thinking about that, and leadership is something that I thought about as it ties to that, right? Because I think the scripture talked about using leaders who may not have the, pedigree, if you will, to assume certain positions. And God chooses perhaps those that I think you said that have the availability and not necessarily the ability to bring forth a message. And, it for me, as I think through that particular quote, it is complex in terms of how I look at it. So first, I'll share that when in 2008, when I was interviewing for my first leadership role, it was 5 years after I completed residency. I was in private practice for 5 years, and at that time, I had was finishing up my master's in public health. And when on the interview with the hiring manager, I quoted that to her, and partly I felt compelled and, believe that God provided that particular concept to me. And part of that was I had never had a leadership position to that point, a substantial leadership position, let me say that. And wanted to convey to the hiring manager that I was ready, that although I had not had, this long history of leadership, that I was eager and that I was willing to learn. And, part of my mindset was being results driven. And I believe that wholeheartedly, that there are instances where leaders are given the opportunity to serve when they don't have the pedigree.
Mm.
And I think in some instances, you can rise to the occasion, right? By equipping yourself with additional knowledge and training. And for me, much of my journey in terms of leadership began with equipping myself. And so I knew that I didn't have the long history of leadership, but I was eager and ready and wanted to prepare myself. And that's pretty much when my journey in physician leadership began. But if I step apart from that particular scenario and that quote and think about foolishness that exists in leadership,
Mm.
what the responsibility of those of us who may be more uh, skilled is thinking about how we share and help leaders to rise and our contribution to that. And, I feel perhaps part of God's desire and calling those that are not able, or those that are available and not able, is really a call to those who have experience,
Mm.
perhaps to share with those who are in those positions, to make their and help to inform, and so that they can better be leaders in their respective ways.
So some people, if I heard you right, have the ability, even the availability, just refuse to give.
Oh
Or
yeah.
they do it, but they do it um well, the Bible says begrudgingly. They don't do it cheerfully. They don't do it like with a sense of purpose. They just do it because, well, I have the ability, so I'll do it. But there's no real um, purpose behind it. There's nothing there that will be beneficial to a lot of people and be a blessing and raise people up. Did I hear that right?
Yes, and I'll go a bit further in terms of what I believe the reason why those who have skills, knowledge, and ability, that when they don't share, I believe it's because there's this belief of a zero-sum game. And
Mm.
so in a zero-sum game, it believes that there's only one winner. And we all know, or we should know, that uh, we can all win together. And what I believe that was, divinely put in my heart, as well as affirmed through, Spelman and, my upbringing, is that, um, you know, the gifts that we have are to be shared and not to be held for our own selfish gain. And when there's a new door that you enter in a room, that you don't close the door tight to prevent others from getting in, that you open it wide. And many of those who I have worked with have said, well, have asked, why is it that I believe that and have modeled my behavior in that way? And I just believe that we can all win. And when you have that mindset, that which you give comes back, I mean, multiplied. And so as I think about giving to others, I get so much more back. And not, and I be clear, I don't do it so that I can get back, but it's natural that there's a reciprocation of what you learn, and the relationships that you develop by giving freely and not begrudgingly, and not feeling like giving to others is going to allow them to get an upper hand, so you're going to lose.
Mm.
All have so much to win together.
That's a point that I think true leadership really helps others to grow more than it does complements the person who's doing the leadership, who's doing the leading, if you will. Um, and what you've expressed to me is genuine, authentic leadership. It's not based upon what's in it for me. It's not based upon what am I going to get out of it. It's not a, sum total that if I don't win, nobody wins. It's none of those things. And I agree with you. I'm 100% in agreement when you say that it's should be a win-win situation. There's more than enough resources to go around. There's more than enough for everybody to win. But as a physician, you know that when your body begins eating away at itself, that's a disease, isn't it? And so when you have that kind of a mentality that, I've got to win, and that means that somebody's got to lose. So that your energies are going towards not trying to raise up others, but trying to stop them from getting what you think you have or what you think you deserve. And if I'm not mistaken, that is a disease. That's cancer does that. Cancer says you're taking up space that I'm supposed to be occupying in the same body, and it starts to eat away at itself, right? Dr. Sears used to always say, you don't get ulcers from what you eat. You get ulcers from what's eating you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think when you have that kind of a mentality, when you think that I've got to get mine, that you really become inverted as opposed to being extroverted. And I think I think it has a detrimental effect not only on you but on everybody else. You may wind up with a lot, but at what cost?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Spelman's motto is lift as we climb. And, again, that's a large part of, right? It's, as you mentioned, it's, one of the most historical colleges. And, it's about, again, it allows for and instills in its students about serving and leading, right? That we have to serve and lead. Those are uh, they ought to be together and not singular in action.
And what also disturbs me is that, now I'm gonna be very personal about this one, is that when we
Mm-hmm.
put people in positions because of relationship or something else, but they really shouldn't be there, and they create issues for everybody. And I see that a lot, particularly in our volunteer organizations, churches,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and other volunteer organizations, that people sort of aspire to be the leader, but they really run into what I would call the Peter principle. You rise to your level of incompetency. And that happens so frequently that many of our organizations now are suffering from that.
Mm-hmm.
That our organizations are not moving forward. They're not doing the things that could be done because people are, what one of my colleagues used to say, you have to be on the right bus, sitting in the right seat, going in the right direction. And sometimes we're in the wrong seat on the wrong bus and headed in completely wrong direction. And I think that in my way of thinking is another way of saying, there's no passion in what you're doing because you're doing it for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah. I mean, humility is important, you know, attribute to have when you're in leadership and to be able to be open to uh, others providing input to help to redirect, right? Because we're all trying to figure it out, right? None of us are perfect, right? And those in leadership, often, depending on their motivation, may need help from others. And
Right.
it takes a bit of humility and vulnerability as a leader to be able to say, you know what, I don't know. I don't know. But I want to learn from
Mm-hmm.
others. And learning from others doesn't mean it's someone who is at a higher level. You can learn most often from those who are on the front lines,
Mm-hmm.
because they have a better picture of what's reality. And you know, it takes time to understand that. It takes a maturity to understand that as well.
Now, part of that, I'm glad that you said that because as a physician, your frontline persons oftentimes are the nurses, right?
Mhm.
The
Yeah.
nurses are there day by day. They see the reaction. They see the reaction that patients have to certain medications that may have been prescribed that doctors don't often see because they're looking at it from a macro perspective, and nurses see it from a very a very specific perspective. They see what's going on day to day, and but some doctors don't take that nurse's observations and do things with them that are beneficial for the patient. Is that true in all over the medical field, or is that just true in some of the fields that I?
Something there's you can't say always or never, right?
Right.
So many instances, yes. And I would assert that the front line can be defined as your front office staff person and your
Mm-hmm.
and those are the individuals that sometimes patients will confide in on
Yeah.
sometimes what may seem like insignificant, but
Mm-hmm.
very critical information that the physician or the nurse may not have information on. And so, again, it takes the ability to recognize that every team member is important. So, we talked about basketball early on, and when you have a starting five, right? You have your point guards, you have a point guard, your shooting guard. I was a power forward,
Okay.
and
Right.
then you have your center, your defensive player. And you need all five to ensure that they're operating within their role so that the team can win. And as a leader, to recognize, well, what's your starting five if it's basketball or if it's football? I don't know how many, right? But every individual part of the team has an important role, and that role, the success of the team cannot happen if everyone's trying to do the job of someone else,
Right.
or you don't allow for the input of those team members to help you, right? And so that can include your bench because they see the full game when you're on the floor and they have a different perspective that could be really critical for the success of the team. We've seen teams that they have one or two players that will, score 50 points.
Mm-hmm.
By and large, those teams are not successful for long, right? Because they don't have the collective doing that work. And so if you talk about, the NBA, where Boston just won, right? It took every player. You think about Tatum and Anthony Brown, and then I'm gonna escape the name of the player who chipped his tooth. That he played an important role as well.
Mm-hmm.
So each of those players had an important role. And so when we look at leadership and uh, think about who's on the team, and there are multiple teams, right? And if you're at the executive level, it's the executive team, but who's at the frontline level? What is the vantage point that they have? How can they help inform the strategy and the operations? And do you have a process in which you incorporate their feedback so that you can be smarter as an executive?
Well said. In fact, so well said, it really took us right into our top of the top of the hour. So what I want to do is I'm going to go ghost for a minute. You can do likewise. And
Okay.
what we will do now is I'm going to take a minute and just go back. We'll look at the my sponsors and advertisers, and we'll also read the article again. We'll ask the challenge question, and the next hour, what we'll do is we will then look at some of the comments that have been made by those who are viewing with us, and we'll bring them into the conversation. So, to my viewers, please, the question is on your screen. You know what it is, right? I'll say it again just so you know it's there. Are you with your foolish self ready, willing, and available to be used by God to confound the wise? So you can put your answers to that question. You can even raise questions. You can do what you want, because I want to bring you into our conversation. And we'll do that by simply bringing you on using the information that you've written. So, ma'am, sir, please share with us as we go to the top of our hour. And I will share my screen now, and you see it. That's good. And then we'll be back in a moment. Please don't forget our sponsors and advertisers, the JLR Company and J. Lauren Russell Consulting, LLC. For all of your church financial consulting needs, we have a website, www.jlaurenrussellconsulting.com. That's jlaurenrussellconsulting.com. Or telephone us at 718-328-8096, 718-328-8096. If you need a church loan, if you need to develop your property, if you want to know how to maintain your church property, if you need to train your trustees, if you need evangelism training, give us a call. We'll help. It's not about the castle. It's about the kingdom. Matters of Faith, the book. Through our Cash App, $ Matters of Faith, the book is $23.92. You can send your check or money order to the Post Office Box 301, New York, New York 10035. That's Post Office Box 301, New York, New York 10035, and address it to the JLR Company. You can also get it as an ebook. Just go to www.smashwords.com/books/view/993177. Once again, www.smashwords.com/books/view/993177. Check out the Eat Okra app for all Black-owned restaurants all over the nation. Yes, that's right. Eat Okra. And then subscribe, like, and share our Matters of Faith YouTube channel. We are now broadcasting Matters of Faith on our Matters of Faith YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, and share it with a friend. And also, get your subscription to Better Mag magazine today. A 2-year subscription is only $27.50. Go to www.abettermag.com. That's www.abettermag.com. Well, this is the last time that you're going to hear this, period. On June 29th, 2024, this coming Saturday, Rotary District 7230 will have their annual conference, and it will be held at Yankee Stadium. Please, ma'am, please, sir, if you have not thought about coming, I want you to consider coming. We'd like you to be a part of this historic occasion at this historic location. I will have completed my year as a district governor of Rotary District 7230, the first African American to ever serve in this capacity in over 100 years. Please join us. It will be a memorable occasion, and I would not want you to miss it. You must be registered. There are no walk-ins at Yankee Stadium. Please get your ticket today, scan the QR code, or register by going to District 7230, www.district7230. I look forward to seeing you. I pray that you'll be there. Thank you so much for considering. I love you. There's nothing you can do about it, so get used to it. I'll see you on Saturday. And now the article for the last time, The Foolish Things. And that article can be found in my column, Matters of Faith, at the Bronx Chronicle, www.thebronxchronicle.com, www.thebronxchronicle.com. It can also be found in the Yonkers Insider, www.yonkersinsider.blogspot.com. That's www.yonkersinsider.blogspot.com. Scroll down until you find my column, Matters of Faith. There you will find the article, The Foolish Things. The column is also carried in Better Mag magazine, www.abettermag.com. That's www.abettermag.com. You can also find the column in Pamela's Big Heart newsletter, The Foolish Things. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 26 through 31, New King James Version. For you see your calling, brethren, that not many wise according to the flesh, not many mighty, not many noble are called. But God has chosen the foolish things of the world to put to shame the wise. And God has chosen the weak things of the world to put to shame the things which are mighty. And the base things of the world, and the things which are despised, God has chosen. And the things which are not, to bring to nothing the things that are, that no flesh should glory in his presence. But of him you are in Christ Jesus, who became for us wisdom from God, and righteousness, and sanctification, and redemption, that, as it is written, he who glories, let him glory in the Lord. The foolish things. In the reading from our daily bread this past Friday, the author said about these verses in Paul's letter to the Corinthian church, quote, he wrote to a troubled church, characterized by congregational conflicts, abuse of liberty, lack of humility, immorality, and disunity, unquote. So that no one misunderstands the point. It was not the people in the world Paul was talking about. He was talking about the people who made up the church. The text addresses those who had been placed in leadership. He tells them that it was not because of their intelligence, their status, their influence, their authority, or anything that would make them think they were superior to others. Paul says that God chose the foolish things of the world to confound the wise and the mighty. He reminds the leaders as well as the wayward church that God does not often choose the affluent, the mighty, the strong, or the intellectually gifted to lead his church. They themselves were examples of the foolish, the weak, the base, the despised, the things that are not, that they were the ones chosen by God to be leaders of this wayward church. They were specifically chosen so everyone would see that there was nothing to brag or boast about, and God would get the glory. This reminds me of Moses telling the children of Israel as they were about to enter the promised land, quote, then you say in your heart, my power and the might of my hand have gained me this wealth. And you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant, which he swore to your fathers, as it is this day. Deuteronomy chapter 8, verses 17 and 18. Everything they may have thought was the reason for their wealth or their status, anything they thought qualified them to lead God's people, was the exact thing that eliminated them from consideration. It is just as true today as it was in the days of Moses and the days of the early church. God does not send the qualified. He qualifies the sent. While it may be true in the secular world that those who are the most qualified based on their education, experience, or connections are the ones who are most likely given the reins of leadership, it is not so in God's kingdom. God uses the foolish things to bring glory to himself. He uses those with the availability, not just those who have the ability. He chooses those with the least and gets the most. The foolish things to confound the wise. He chooses ordinary people to do extraordinary things. Are you, with your foolish self, ready, willing, and available to be used by God to confound the wise? Be blessed. Now, I'm putting a little twist on my question tonight. This is the last time, but I'm putting a twist on it. In what ways are you, with your foolish self, getting yourself ready, willing, and available to be used by God to confound the wise? Let me ask it again because I put a little twist on it. In what ways are you, with your foolish self, getting yourself ready, willing, and available to be used by God to confound the wise? Are you enjoying my guest tonight? I know you are. So let me take a moment just to say how proud I am of her and how glad I am to have her with us tonight. So without further ado, my guest, my friend, and this phenomenal woman who does phenomenal things in the world of medicine and beyond, Dr. Sophia McIntyre. Okay, so we are back. We are back. And bigger and better than ever. So let me kick it off by asking you this question. I mean, I know that you do this already, so it's really not a question for you, but I'm gonna ask it anyway because I really want to kick it off and see who's going to answer the question tonight in our chat. But in what ways are you preparing yourself to be ready with your foolish self, willing and available to be used by God to confound the wise. Now we've been talking about that anyway, but I'm just gonna kind of drop on that and let's talk about that. If you want me to kick it off, I will, but I'm gonna drop it on you and let you answer that question first.
Well, I think there's several ways in which I'm doing that. So one is continuing to learn and to think about how my particular skill set can be sharpened, right? You know, iron sharpens iron. So it's one, surrounding myself with really smart people so that I can learn and glean from them. Continue to have formal, you know, leadership and reading, reading a lot. And then, of course, from a spiritual perspective, is in the midst of all that is busy in the world, being still and listen to God's voice of how He wants me to serve. And, I haven't shared this earlier. I've been thinking about ways to better hear from God. And what I've contemplating is fasting and, really being still so that I can better understand how God chooses and would like for me to serve and to help the foolish, if you will.
Like that, like that. I've been since I've met you, I've known you now for what, close to 30 years, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I don't share this frequently because people might think that it's somehow or another boasting. It's not. But I've been fasting once a week, every week for about 40 years.
Wow.
About 40 years. Today is the day. Monday is my fast day. And I began it. And the reason I'm saying this is because of what you just said. You said I'm learning to listen to the voice of God and finding ways of bettering my hearing. And you said fasting and to be still. And what I've noted over the years, Mondays are some of my most productive days
Mhm.
because I don't have to take time to eat. It's all communications, all it's almost like it's as if I become a sponge on Monday. Things happen and and things just flow to me and flow through me. It's an amazing thing. So it's about a 36-hour fast. And it's an amazing experience that I will never ever give up. Now, sometimes if I'm doing something different, and I'm around, I may break my fast, but that's me. Nobody knows it except me, my
Mhm.
wife maybe, but nobody else knows it.
Mhm.
Because they don't have to know it. The Bible talks about fasting and people noticing it, but when you do that, should be not something that's so public that people, oh, that's what you're doing. No, that's not, because that's not a true, authentic worship of God.
Mhm.
It's so that you can be sort of put in the spotlight. That's not why I do it at all.
Mhm.
I do it because I started it because I was frightened to death. I was going through a transition in my life, and I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna deal with this. And the Lord said, push back your plate, talk to me. And I've been doing it ever since.
Awesome. So we have an opportunity for you to share more about how you're able to do it successfully. So I'd love to hear more about that offline.
Well, I mean, I can share it. I don't problem. I have problem sharing it because first of all, it is a discipline.
Mhm.
It does require a commitment. But you talked about it earlier. You said there's a goal. My goal is that my relationship with the Lord will grow through the fasting. Um, that I would hear His voice differently.
Mhm.
Because I've found out over the years, eating is noisy. When you're eating, you're not really you're not listening for stuff because you have to give this food attention.
Mhm.
And so to push it back and gives me the opportunity just to think, just to say, and I don't have to break my concentration because, oh, it's time to eat.
Mhm.
It's not time to eat. It's time to just continue on. So um I had a president once when I was working with the religious organization. He used to say, you should be in a running dialogue with the Lord all day long. And I said, that's a great thing. And on Mondays, it's intensified.
Mhm.
And I look forward to it. I look forward to it. Waking up in the morning, um, no breakfast. I have water. That's all I do, water. I do Metamucil. I don't know, you're the doctor. I do Metamucil. I still do that. But other than that, it's just water and my supplements that I take. That's it. And um, it just flows. It just flows. And it also realigns my body chemistry, you know,
Mhm.
my movements and stuff like that. And that's important because sometimes you can, you consume so much that your body doesn't have a chance to rest because your digestive system is always working.
Mhm.
So it gives my digestive system a chance to just sort of what's not it's not extract, but just push out everything. What's the word I'm looking for?
Well, just for it to move
Yes,
flowing.
yes.
I'm going to give you the technical term of peristalsis, but
Okay.
allowing it to move, you know.
So per Celsius, that's what it does. It flows through, and so it gives my body a chance to rest, and that's a good thing because I need to do that. I need to give my body a chance to replenish itself.
Yeah, yeah.
So all of those things. And so now I've been doing it so long, I don't think about those things. It just comes. It's just natural. So Mondays, if I'm traveling, it doesn't matter. Traveling, wherever I am, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I can be at a banquet and it won't matter. And people won't even notice. They'll say, I said, no, 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 thank you. Just give me water. I'll drink water. I'll drink maybe, seltzer water or something like that, but that's it. And they won't notice it because I don't make it an issue.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, right. And that's part of what my prayer is that my actions and my words, both in public and private, are a reflection of God, right? It's so easy to communicate what you're doing and it not be authentic and consistent to what God wants. And it's definitely a process. I have a very good friend of mine in New York who has a strong faith, and I often, when I talk with her and we share about the challenges of life, we recognize that, Christianity it's all about the evolution, right? That each day we're seeking to get closer and to be more Christ-like, but that doesn't mean perfection.
Right, right.
I have a sign near my door from the garage that says, uh, uh, "You can be amazing," or something to the effect of perfection. Like you're amazing and you don't require perfection, right?
Mm, mm,
That's so important because I think many times folks get stifled by the ability to achieve because
mhm.
it's not at a certain level. And recognizing that perfection is not the goal, that progress
Right,
is the
right.
important part. And, God has a way of teaching us that when we're not on the right track, He creates an opportunity for us to recognize the important progress.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There was somebody said something, I think it was Maya Angelou. She said, try to be a rainbow in somebody's cloud.
Mm.
That's not perfection. That's
Mhm.
just shining a light.
Mhm.
That's just letting your light shine so that others might be able to see a sense of hope. And that's really, for me, that's what it's about. And you know, it's so interesting. The things that I'm doing, the things that I do, um, I don't do them because I want to be seen. I do it because it glorifies God. I do a lot of secular things, but in my secular doing, they call me Reverend Dr. Russell. So they are attributing those things that I do to God.
Mhm.
Even if they don't, even if they're not doing it consciously, even if they call me Lauren, they know that Reverend Doctor goes before that. And so when they see that sense of peace and that sense of calm coming, no matter what the circumstance, then they say, wow, you know, how do you do that? I so now they ask the question. The Bible talks about something interesting. The Bible says that people approached Paul and Silas and all these people, says, what must I do to be saved? What do I need to do to get that? That's the point. And I in my evangelism and teaching evangelism, what I like to share with people is that if you get people to ask you a question, because I didn't initiate this conversation, you did, which gives me permission to say anything I want, anything. You know, I wear a hat, I wear a cap, and it says CSI. And people see me and they say, are you with CSI? Or are you at the television show? And I'll say, do you know what it means? And they'll say, yeah, crime scene investigation. I'll say, well, you're almost right. This means preacher. What? I say, don't you see it? Big bold letters, CSI, preacher. Can't you see it? No. I said, look, CSI, preacher, Christian student instructor, preacher. But you're right, because S, sin, I is C, a crime. So it's always a crime scene investigation. Stops them in their tracks, and they say, are you really a preacher? I got you. I got you. You're mine. I wear this cap when I'm traveling. I've worn the cap when I've been all kind of places, especially when I'm traveling in airports, on planes. I remember there was a stewardess on a plane. I was coming back from Massachusetts, and we started talking based upon the cap. And she says, "You know, I, I, I really need to get back in relationship with the Lord." Prayed, spent some time with her. We left. We stayed in touch with one another. I called and prayed with her quite a bit. She called me one day and told me that she'd gone through some hard times and that she was homeless. So we prayed real hard. Literally the next day, not only did she get an apartment, but the church came by and said, wow, you need some furniture because we got a whole bunch of furniture that we were just going to give away. They gave her a whole house full of brand new furniture. And she called me and said, I can't believe what just happened. I said, tell me about it. She told me about it. She was in tears. Well, that was God's way of remaining anonymous for her.
Yeah.
All of that came together for her. And I'm saying that to say this, when your purpose and your spirit are in alignment, the things that you do, the things that you say, all show up in the places that you show up at.
Yeah.
Miracles take place. Miracles take place. And I'll never forget her. And that's not the first time that's happened. It's happened a lot. And all because of this little cap that I wear. Now, I can't take credit for the CSI interpretation because I was in South Carolina. One of my friends that grew up with me in the South Bronx moved to South Carolina, and I was down there visiting with my family and stuff. And he came by, and I had on a New York hat. He said, man, I gotta have that hat. I don't have a New York hat. I gotta have a cap that says New York. I said, well, I need a cap for my head. He said, well, you take this one. I said, CSI? I want a CSI cap. He said, yeah, but not for you. He said, this is good. This is a Christian student instructor. That's for you. And I said, I like that. And we exchanged caps. I
I
have
love
like 10 of them now.
love how God has a way of creating these circumstances that can help to amplify what he can do in the lives of others.
Yes.
That story is a great reflection of that. And, what I think is critical in that is having the ability for those of us to be open to that, right? Because I think there are many opportunities where God is choosing to use us in a way, and we have to be open to that so that
Yes.
he can use us. And that comes with humility and having a clarity about your purpose on life, in life is to, again, serve and lead. And that can be manifested in so many ways, right? And so for you, it was an instant exchange of a cap and how that continued to be amplified in all the environments that you
Mhm.
interact with others to be able to share that. And those who are on the other side have to be open to hear and listen, to be curious. Part of what I share sort of in the bio is having a curious mindset.
Right. Right.
And
You
when you
did say
come
that.
with a bit of curiosity, what that allows for you to be is not judgmental and to be open to different perspectives. And I will say that I'm learning to do that better.
Mm, mm,
It's so easy to make an assessment around a circumstance. And it takes a bit of a time to be curious. And curiosity is about asking questions. There's a book called Humble Inquiry. And in that book, it's another leadership book that I share with those that I work with. And
mhm.
it's about asking questions. And what I've learned through my coaching training, it's about appreciative inquiry, right? So it's continuing to ask questions so that you can gain a better understanding of the individual or the circumstance. And I think that's so important for us as leaders and then also disciples of God.
Well, you're absolutely right. I think, for me, it's always questions. It's always questions, asking questions that drive conversation. And it's not the answer to the question. In fact, um, if you're looking for, I mean, I know in some fields, the definitive answer is what people look for, but I believe that there's more in the inquisition than there is in the answer.
Mhm.
So as long as there's a question, there's an inquiry going on. People are investigating, you're looking. Um, the moment that you get a definitive answer, then your inquiry stops. Done. I know the answer, so I don't have to look at it anymore. But as long as there's a question, then there's also more digging, more looking, more investigating, and you're still looking. You're looking. So I'm always looking for the right question, the next question. I'm like a little kid. I always want to ask more questions. So I have a question for you, by the way. This
Oh,
question comes from SB. She says, Dr. Sophia, what are some of the challenges you have had to face as a Christian in the medical field?
oh, I think that's my girlfriend asking that question. Oh, Lord. So, so that's a great question. So, what are the challenges that I've had to, as a Christian, face as a physician? I think many, honestly. I guess I'll start with at the bedside. And, at this juncture in my career, I'm not at the bedside any longer,
Mm-hmm.
or, sort of the uh, exam table.
Right.
Um, I think as a Christian is when you see patients who have a good heart and they have suffered unduly due to inadequate healthcare, right? And that means clinicians who have not listened carefully
Mm-hmm.
to patients and or disregarded important symptoms and warning signs of something that is quite catastrophic, and seeing them when they have advanced disease and it could be avoided.
Hmm.
So as a Christian, it's hard because, you want to understand, often the dilemma is, so, why do terrible things happen to good people, right? And it's hard to see or challenging to see that occur. And so that's, more of the sort of technical aspect as a clinician. I think uh, in leadership, it is challenging to see when I will say evil persists,
Mhm.
and those who do things that are not for the good of the many continue to be in positions where they can cause great harm. And, I think as a Christian, it's hard, right? I think about the political environment now. I think about what I see in corporate America, and just trying to figure out and how, as a Christian, what do you do about it? And innately, I'm a problem solver. So I want to think about what are the ways in which I can help to mitigate that? What's my part in having some influence to make things better? And often it's not the ability to completely, fix it, whatever the fix is, but to think of and not to get, I would say, weary in doing good. I mean, we talked about that early, right? And so thinking about how you can change perspectives. I talk about this a lot with, certainly my coaching clients, and even thinking about how I work on changing mindset, right? We often will hear the dialogue of, the glass is half empty or half full. But when you have an abundance mindset, which is something that I really focus on, you think about what you have and what you rather than what you don't have. And so in each circumstance, thinking about how God has enabled me with the skills that I have, and thinking about how I can leverage those to make things better. So, at the bedside or at the table side, thinking about, okay, I may not be able to reverse what has occurred in that patient, but when I can tell a patient, I see you, I hear you, and let's talk about the path together. My intention in the exam room has always been to ensure that I'm in partnership with my patients, that this is not a patriarch, I'm going to tell you what to do. I want us to talk about what the options are.
Mhm.
And that takes more time, certainly, to do that. But I think it is necessary to do that because healthcare is scary. And if we don't take the time to listen fully and to have that appreciative inquiry, right, to better understand, uh, it can have devastating effects.
Mhm.
So thinking about how I'm able to use the influence to impact, hundreds and thousands of patients, about creating space for clinicians to do that. Healthcare is complex. There's a lot of distractions, and in particular within primary care. And so thinking about how you can help to curate systems that allow for physicians to be focused on patients and not in the documentation and all the things that distract, so that patients can get the rightful care that they deserve when they're in the exam with patients.
It's interesting. I've had a lot of people from a lot of different work backgrounds on the show, including judges, attorneys, others. And it's interesting because all of them who happen to be followers of Christ, and some of them are not followers of Christ, and that's fine, I'll get that. But all of them talk about this place where you can literally hear what people are saying and get into their space and help them to understand or help to understand them so that you can understand how to help them.
Mhm.
And that goes across the board for any profession where you're dealing with people. I don't care what level you're on, but everyone has a level of leadership in their capacity. And so those who have concern all talk about finding that place where they can hear you,
Mhm.
um, and not sort of dictate to you what it is that you should be doing. Because sometimes I was, you know, someone asked me today, how do you how did you give up how do you stop eating carbs? How do you do that? Because I can't, you train yourself to do that. It's a discipline.
Mhm.
As a
Mhm.
person who plays basketball, how do you run those, what do they call them, those suicide runs? How do
Mhm.
you do that? That's suicide. But you develop the discipline to do it because you look at the end result. Why am I doing this? Because at the end of the day,
Yep.
I'm really doing this in a real life situation. It's called a basketball game. And I'm
Mhm.
doing suicide runs. I'm running short, long, short, and I have to be able to do this on a consistent basis. If not, then I won't be able to compete. And in all instances, no matter what your field of expertise may be, I'm a minister. I counsel people. I marry people. I do funeral services. I'm there, in their moments of grief and sorrow. I'm there in their times of joy. And I've got to be there, present and accountable, right then, right there. I can't think about a person who's having a homegoing service in the same light or listen to them in the same way that I listen to someone who's getting ready to do a wedding. There's a different space, different mindsets. And I have to be able to be in those mindsets at that particular time.
Mhm.
And doctors, people in the medical field, people who are in the legal field have to do the same because if you're talking to someone who's facing a homicide charge versus someone who's trying to file a wrongful acts claim or something, it's totally different scenarios.
Mhm.
you're you have to be able to tune in to their frequency, and then you can help them,
Yeah.
even if it's nothing more than to say, I hear you, I'm with you. Have you ever prayed with anyone as a doctor? Have you
Oh,
ever?
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Many times. Many times. There was one woman who came in, and she was very depressed and really had a lack of hope and just could not really see a path forward. And she was a new patient to me, young woman, young Black woman. And I asked her if it was okay that I prayed with her. And I've done that many times with patients. And, I think it's important for patients to be able to know that their doctor cares for them
Mm,
physically, mentally, and spiritually. And I share freely for those who, in which the conversation is appropriate, that I'm a Christian and that I believe that God has ordained our life. And I, provide scripture, when appropriate. And, I think it's important because, we're complex individuals, right?
mhm,
And,
mhm,
real talk with patients is, as a Christian, I don't have all the answers. And sometimes I get angry at God and I'm unsure of why things are the way they are. But I know, and my sister says this often, is God is sovereign, right?
mm,
That God is sovereign above all. And having that understanding and recognizing that whatever is going on in the moment, that God is trying to teach us. We learn the most when things are disruptive and
mhm,
when we fail. And having that understanding so that we can then lean in, if you will, to this discomfort, this disruption, and this failure. And, in medicine, it's hard because often there is this sense of perfection
mm,
because it is, in some instances, life or death.
right.
The idea for things not to be perfectly as they should as a physician is tough, and it's just can be overwhelming. And, having an understanding that, God does not want perfection for us. He wants us to be able to learn. And I think it gets back to the scripture of, taking the foolish, right? And providing an opportunity for a lesson to be had. And, getting back to the question that SB asked about, how has it been hard as a Christian? I will say, as a physician, I would just say, just as a human being, it's been hard. Life provides many challenges for us. And the way that we choose to approach those challenges um, varies, right? Depending on upbringing, experience. And at any moment, any one of us, right, could be overwhelmed by whatever challenge that we have. And, as I think through the challenges, I mean, at every juncture of my life, there's been challenges, right? So in medical school, there was a course I didn't pass and I had to go do some remediation. But even before medical school, during my first year at Spelman, I was on academic probation.
Mm.
So when you blink, if you step back, at least for me, and I think about, so you've read my bio, and one may presuppose that everything was fine, that it was tether, like there was no bumps in the road. There were peaks and valleys along each road. And again, it gets back to that quote of the consistency, right? And so maintaining faith despite those bumps, because I believe that God has a purpose for me.
Mm.
And understanding that, right? That's the outcome, his purpose. So, how can I work towards better understanding his purpose? And I will say that each of the instances where there have been painful lessons and circumstances, I'm like, all right, God, I know this is a lesson.
Mm.
I don't know what it is. Could you help me understand what that is? And by the way, could you be quick about it? But, sometimes we just have to go through and endure to get on the other side.
Well, thank you for your transparency there, because yeah, when you read a snapshot, it looks like everything just went, but when you look in the details, it was more like this. And life is that's life. That's life. Um, and people often think, I did a show years ago. I don't know if you remember this or not. I called it OPP, Other People's Problems. It was a talk show. I did it on radio, and it was a call-in talk show. And I would pick a topic similar to what we do tonight, except that we're using scripture. But we talk about a problem, and I'd have a guest on, and they would talk about the problem and how they were able to overcome it. And what was interesting is that in this short 30-minute to an hour show, we would get 20, 25 calls. And my engineer said, I don't ever think I've seen anybody get this many calls in that short period of time. I said, yeah, because people think that they're the only ones going through the problem. They think they're the only ones who are doing it. And then when they recognize that there are others who have similar issues and similar problems, they want to express themselves and say, wow, I thought I was the only one. And so as you were speaking, it's exactly what came to mind, that people tend to believe and they think that they're the only ones until you begin to dig a little deeper, right? That, see, she could do that because, she was just smart. Everything worked for her. She went to Spelman. She did, but when you said academic probation, I was never on academic probation. And I did college late. Um, and I had to take a lot of remedial courses because I went to school for auto mechanics, and they didn't teach us academics in the automotive school. When I went to college, I'd take everything over again. So when you say academic probation, that means you have to knuckle down and do some things very seriously because you are at threat to being thrown out of the school that you had looked forward to going to, in your life, and now you're there and it's about to end. Lord, what happened? I thought I was good. I was here. I made it here, and now it's about to end.
Yeah, when I reflect on academic probation, which is quite apropos to talk about it now, given that I have a senior going to college, is,
Mm,
I studied many hours. Many of my dorm mates thought that I had a 4.0 because I spent hours and hours and hours of
mm,
studying. And the essence of it is I wasn't studying the right material,
mm,
trying to consume it all. And part of that was I wasn't asking and going to the source. I was trying to do it on my own.
mm,
And that has so many lessons, right? In terms of when you're in trouble and you're not doing well, how do you seek out help and do it early enough
yep.
so that you don't, result in failure in this case? And that's what it was about. And then that was biology, by the way. I was a biology major. I knew
Wow.
that I wanted to be a
Wow.
physician. And so I had to figure out how to ask for help and to set my pride aside. And yes, I worked hard and was able to do well in high school, but it was about being smarter by asking for help and direction from my professors and then
Mm.
others who were around me. And that lesson continues to echo right throughout my life about asking for help. And, as a strong Black woman raised by a strong Black woman, right?
Mm.
Thinking about how we operate in the world and many times trying to prove that we belong and not wanting to be vulnerable and figuring out how to navigate those waters. I mean, there's so many lessons that resonate from that very early lesson in college.
That's, I like your transparent. I really appreciate the transparency because um, knowing how to seek help is so very important. And I think about that because if I think about my own experiences, I do a lot of work with the with people who are victims of whatever, and oftentimes their biggest victimization is what they do to themselves, not seeking help to help them make it through, and the help's available. I remember once going to a gentleman's house, and I was with the police, going with the police, with the sheriffs, with ATF, giving them this hard message. Hey, if the violence continues, they're gonna come at you with everything they've got. He said, look, I'm not doing anything. I haven't been doing it. I did time in jail. They put me in jail for the wrong reason. He was mad. He was angry, angry. And I said, well, one of the things that this initiative will do is provide you with whatever help you might need, whatever it is. I don't care if it's a job. I don't care if it's relocation. Whatever it is, big or small. And it was printed on this card that I have. Said it's real. It's never happened. It's never happened before. He said, I don't want anything from or to do with the police department. I said, I get that. I understand that. I feel that. But didn't you tell me when I knocked on your door that your father was having some issues and that you thought that the hard knock on the door might create for him, give him a heart attack because he has a heart condition? He said, yeah. I said, does he need some special help? Because that's part of the anything. And he stopped because I actually heard what he said.
Mhm.
Stopped. He said, I said, listen, I said, you may not want it, but anyone in your family who needs it can also get it. He went from literally from being a 10 to a 2.
Mhm.
The police that I was with, because he was at a 10 and he was about 6'4" and looked like he just got out of jail yesterday. And he was massive. They were reaching for their sidearms. but I was reaching for his heart.
Mm-hmm.
He went from a 10 to a 2. He said, yeah, that makes sense, man. I said, yeah, no doubt. I said, look, take this number. Call this. If you don't get what you're looking for, call me. I said, because I'm holding them accountable. These guys here, I'm holding them accountable. Because if they got me out here telling you this, they better damn well live up to their responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for taking the time to allow us to talk to you today. That's all right, no problem. Shook his hand, said hello to his father, and we left. One of the most amazing things that happened. There was 8 police officers with me, by the way. I want you to know this.
Mm-hmm.
Looked and said, Rev, I've never seen anything like that in my life. They called me Rev. I never saw anything like this in my life. Because what they saw was how to relate to people in a different way when you are there with them and you're touching them where they live. There's a different response. You don't have to be all of that because you got a gun or you got a badge or you got a uniform on. You just have to be genuine.
Yeah, yeah. That the work of, community members in hand with law enforcement is so important,
Absolutely.
particularly around Black and Brown communities. And we,
Mm-hmm.
and, certainly in the clinical settings as well, when patients who have mental illness are
Yes.
angry and disruptive, and people react, they don't respond, and it can be quite catastrophic. And, as I think about, some of the similarities to just many other things outside of the clinical setting is, how can we have some level of discipline when we're faced with, you know, matters that are upsetting, and helping us to respond and not react. It's challenging, but
Mm-hmm.
certainly it can be done, and it takes some self-awareness. Sort of the principles of emotional intelligence, right? Social awareness, self-awareness, and compassion and empathy to be able to respond or react. But life continues to challenge us for sure.
And that leads me to say this: the foolishness that looks foolish to the wise, but it's very clear to God. God uses the foolish to confound the wise. What looks like shouldn't work, God uses to his glory. So, by the way, we're almost out of time. So,
Yeah.
I want to turn it over to you and let you say whatever it is that you need to say, whatever you want to share. We've got about 8 minutes left, 7 minutes left. So, you take as much time as you need. I'll take the last few minutes and just close out what the Lord has placed on my heart. But I'm going to say in advance that I am so delighted that you came and shared with us tonight. This has been wonderful. Absolutely phenomenal. SB, I hope that your question was answered. I believe it was. But any other questions that you might have, we're here every Monday night. You can call, you can come, you can be a part of this every Monday night. But Sophia, thank you so much for being with us tonight. It has been a pleasure. And I am delighted to see you again. When I get down to your part of the country, I'm definitely gonna come I'm gonna find you. We're gonna have lunch or breakfast or something.
Awesome, awesome. So it has been a pleasure to be here with you. And there's a few things that I wanted to share. So one, I was looking at scripture because, we are on Matters of Faith. So
Absolutely.
going to James 1, actually James 3, 13. And when you were talking about Bibles, I still have my contemporary English Bible that you gave
All
us
right.
as my Sunday school students. And it is "Be Up," but that means I am using it as it should be. And so, wisdom above all, very consistent to what we've been talking about tonight. So, it's James chapter 3, verse 13. It says, "Are any of you wise or sensible? Then show it by living right and by being humble and wise in everything you do." And when I think about, the the subject that we talked about, foolishness, and how God chooses to use us, or use those who may not have the experience or the pedigree, uh, to, in some regard, create an opportunity for a lesson. And, I shared earlier that I'm a problem solver, right? So thinking about how do we uh, begin to problem solve and help those who are foolish to be more aware. And if we have the skills, how do we serve so that others may lead? Because maybe we don't get to lead, but we
Mm.
can help others to lead. And there is power in that. There takes a bit of humility to be able to do that. And so, as I think about some parting words and thinking about what's important to me. So first of all, I think about we are able to achieve by understanding fundamentally that it takes the efforts of many for us to collectively achieve. There's an African proverb, and hopefully I can get it right, which says, in essence, that many hands make light.
Mm.
And if we understand that there are contributions from many, that we don't have to have the answers to it all, it allows us to be smarter and brighter as individuals. And then the last thing I will say is I have always been grateful for your friendship, your mentorship, and your pouring in to so many. As I listened to you share yesterday evening about the work that you're doing in the community, I was marveled by that because you're a good warrior, a strong warrior, and you're making a meaningful impact in the day to day. And my desire as a Christian is to continue to figure out how can I have that meaningful impact and to ensure that I leave it better. And, certainly I am grateful for my husband of 20 years. So it'll be
Mm.
years that we have been married in July.
Wow.
And,
Wow. It seems like yesterday.
yes. And so all that, and he's been there from the very beginning, before many of the letters are on, behind my name. He had been there. He has been there. And I'm grateful for his love and his ability to just to give unselfishly to us as a family. And I'm grateful for my mom and my sister and so many that have poured into me so that I can pour into others. And I know we have 3 minutes left. I'm going to read a poem and then I'm going to turn it over to you. And so the poem is excellence. And the reason why I want to end with that, we all have the ability to be excellent. And excellent doesn't mean perfection. And so I'm going to read this. So excellence is a narrow singularity of greatness, difficult to stand on and even more difficult to stay on. Excellence moves. We are either moving toward excellence or we're moving away from it. Excellence does not stand still. Excellence pushes the limits of possibility and positivity. Excellence can only be reached after it has been long been pursued and almost achieved. Excellence is interwoven with human frailty, failure, and experiencing, making it tenfold stronger fabric than average. Excellence does not break when flexed. Achieving excellence gives one unique insight into the future and the possibilities, paving the way to even greater bursts of excellence.
I love it. I love it. And I think you're absolutely right. Whoever wrote it, I applaud you. I applaud you. So listen, in an article written by Shannon Jacobson, published by Bible Keeper, which I found on the internet, he said that there are 3 reasons why God uses foolish things to confound the wise. First, he says, God uses those perceived as foolish or inadequate because they strengthen our faith and direct us to rely on God's power. Number 2, God uses the foolish to confound the wise because it helps us understand how small our problems can be and how large his plans are. And number 3, God uses the foolish to confound the wise because foolishness can be a great teacher. Now, I don't know if you agree with Mr. Jacobs or not, but there is great truth in his observations. We need to strengthen our faith and rely on God for all things. Putting things in perspective helps us to see the grand plans God has for us and how superficial our problems really are, and how God uses that same foolishness to bring lost souls to a saving grace. The foolish things. In what ways are you, with your foolish self, making yourself ready, willing, and available to be used by God to confound the wise? There's no reason why you have what you have, gotten through what you've been through, going to the place God has prepared for you, except for the grace of God. You know you don't deserve any of those things because you are the foolish thing of the world that puts to shame the wise. You are that foolish thing God has chosen because you are weak. You are that foolish thing that God has chosen, who puts to shame the things which are mighty, and the base things of the world, and the things which are despised, and the things which are not. You are that foolish thing that brings to nothing the things that are. You are the foolish thing that reminds people that no flesh should glory in the presence of God. You are that foolish thing that points others to Christ Jesus. Jesus, who became for us wisdom from God. Jesus, who is righteousness. Jesus, who sanctifies us. Jesus, who has redeemed us. So you and your foolish self, get prepared to be used by God to confound the wise and set the captives free. Thank you, Dr. Sophia Lynette McIntyre, for making 2 hours, taking 2 hours out of your extremely busy schedule to be with the Matters of Faith family tonight. I hope it has been as enriching for you as it has been for us, because I've enjoyed every minute of this. I want you to know that I appreciate you and greatly respect, and greatly, I respect you so much, the impact that you're making in the world. The gifts the Lord has given to you has not been wasted. Not only do you use them to confound the wise, but you make the wise, or you make wise the foolish. I like that a lot. Please don't ever stop being who you are and doing what you do. Prophetically speaking, the Lord has said to me that even greater things than these you need to be prepared for. Because there's mountains that you're going to climb, places that you're going to go, and lives that you're going to touch that you have no idea how grand it's going to be. I know that this was not your first time on Matters of Faith. I think the last time you were here, we were talking about COVID and the vaccination. And you gave us such a great understanding of why the vaccination was a good thing. And I thank you for that. But please make plans to come back. We are always better when you leave. So make yourself available to come back, because we want to see you again. Now, don't forget our sponsors and advertisers. The JLR Company, J. Law and R Consulting, those are my companies, LLC, for all your church financial needs. Just call 718-328-8096. You can visit our website, www.jlawandrussellconsulting.com. It's not about the castle. It's about the kingdom. By the way, we work nationwide. It doesn't matter where you are, we'll do it. Matters of Faith, the book. I've been talking about it. This is the book. If you don't have a copy of it, you need to get it. This is a hard copy. But if you want to get it as an ebook, you can do that. But to get the hard copy, it's $24.15, which covers shipping and handling. And you can get that by simply emailing me at Matters of Faith. Actually, at my Matters of Faith Cash App, $ Matters of Faith, and you can just order it there. $24.15 covers shipping and handling. If you want to get it as an ebook, www.smashwords.com, etc. It's in your chat. You can see it. Better Mag Magazine, www.abettermag.com. Subscribe. You know, they carry my column. So I believe in supporting and helping people who support you. So a 2-year subscription is only $27.50. They're a great magazine. They write great things. It's a female publisher and editor. It's her business. She's Gloria Gant, wonderful sister. I've had on several times on my show, and she's carrying my article as I promote for her. She promotes for me. So, and please, please, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share our Matters of Faith YouTube channel. Telephone, text, email, message, any way you do it. But tell a friend to join us regularly on Monday nights for Matters of Faith, the radio show. We are live on Matters of Faith YouTube channel. We also broadcast each episode on our Matters of Faith and J. Lauren Russell Facebook groups. So they're everywhere right now. Please, ma'am, sir, subscribe, like, and share this Matters of Faith YouTube channel. The only way we grow is if you subscribe, like, and share the channel. Make sure that you don't miss a single episode of Matters of Faith because you did not subscribe, like, and share this Matters of Faith YouTube channel. Now, the Lord bless you, the Lord keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. If no one has told you this today, let me be the first to say that I love you and there's absolutely nothing that you can do about it. So get used to it. Join us next week for Matters of Faith, the radio show. And for me and my guest, Dr. Sophia McIntyre, we wish you health and wealth. We wish you gold in store. We wish you heaven after death.